Hello, it's been a while. I don't usually do news videos, however, there is some stuff ramping up in Blitz as, well, the Blitz team gets on developing with our current game, as is the strategy they have decided on for the second part of 2025. And in this video I'll be covering a fair few things which no one else has covered because they were discussed at Tankfest, and of course only 20 or 30 people were given that information despite it being public. So of course that will probably be the most interesting part of the video. You can use the timestamps to go and find that section if you don't care about the new coming soon stuff, which Wargaming has just teased in their new video, which I'll go over fairly briefly. But yeah, this will be a news video. I'll get into that coming soon video first. So here is Wargaming's most recent coming soon video. I'll just quickly go over each aspect of it. So first we can see all the tier 9 tech tree Chinese tanks are going to be receiving PBR graphics. Next, this is the AC-17 Sterope. It's a new tier 9 hybrid nation heavy tank, and this is a new, well, legendary camouflage for it, as that is not the base appearance of the tank. Maybe it will be releasing soon, who knows. A new legendary camo for the Emil 1, and here is something pretty interesting. Battle, well, damage counters for which update live during the battle. So in this case, the player's done 930 damage by their gun, basically, 150 assisted, which is from destroying tracks or spotting enemies, and 425 blocked damage. This is definitely an upgrade over our current system, which is badges. Essentially, you have to try catch when the badge comes up and see how much you've done just by the badge, which doesn't stay on the screen permanently. But here we can see Reforged makes a reappearance in the game. This is a previous Halloween skinned map, and a new battle mode, Infected Front, will be coming for the Halloween game mode this year. Currently no information is known about it, as it is still a while off. New camo for the Indian Panzer and the Object 140. However, the actual tank, the Halloween tank, which they usually have each year, isn't shown in this video, so it remains to be seen what tank that is. The Indian Panzer, by the way, for clarification, and Object 140 are not actually the Halloween tanks for this year, they are just camos. And of course here we can see a unique garage appearance for Halloween. But here we are back in the game. I thought I would just show you very quickly Reforged, because it was previously a Halloween map we had. Of course, I'm not sure if Wargaming used some sort of filter on the video, or if it is a changed appearance for the Reforged map, but here you can see the original version of Reforged, which came into the game maybe 4-5 years ago. You can see it is a night appearance, and it does have a few Halloween theme things around the map, but other than that it is just the same good old Alpenstadt in a different kind of appearance. So I'll just quickly go around the map a bit and try and show you what is essentially going on with this map, but there's not too much that has really changed about it, other than a few pumpkins and mushrooms here and there, and then of course the map overall just being a night map. You can see that the lighting in the houses and from the lamps is actually quite cool and very different, kind of like the old Night Vineyards map that we used to have back in the game a long time ago. But it does seem like Wargaming is just bringing back this version of the map this Halloween without too many changes. Maybe a bit of slightly different lighting due to having an upgraded better engine, but it does seem to be essentially the same as the old Reforged. You can see even the old scarecrow in the same place they showed in the video, with the same mushrooms they also showed in the video. So it could just be a filter, it could be slightly different in appearance, but this is the old Reforged map. You can see a little bit of an Easter egg in the pipes there with the eyes. But yeah, that is it for Reforged. Next I'll talk about essentially what Wargaming did tease to us at Tankfest regarding, well, a few interesting aspects. So the first of the new features I want to talk about from the Tankfest Q&A is regarding weather. So on the background you can see I have a video from Mad Fat Red Rat on YouTube. He is one of the Blitz devs, at least previously. I'm not sure if he does still work on World of Tanks Blitz, but you can see the video I have showing here. Essentially at the Tankfest Q&A there was talk about weather in Reforged and essentially adding it to the game. Wargaming basically said it is possible and we have thought about it, and having some abilities, for example and purely example only and no confirmation. Light tanks have something like smoke screen, heavy tanks have something like artillery strike. By the way, not artillery, an artillery strike, kind of like how it works in War Thunder. And this led to a conversation about how there are ideas to add weather to the game, but it will not be only visuals, because it takes a lot of effort and time to render something such as weather. It won't be only for visual effects, they will have some sort of effect. Just as an example, such as raining makes your tank slower due to the ground being wet and muddy. Of course, this also does mean night maps may be a possibility. So you can see here on the background a few examples of the weather that have been shown. Of course, this is the current Blitz game and not Reforged Blitz, and this is from quite a few years ago, so it is just an example, a sort of placeholder to show you, and definitely not any indication of what weather would be like in Reforged. However, weather is certainly an interesting aspect of the game, which a lot of people have been talking about in the past, and I've seen it come up a few times recently, so I just thought I would share this to, well, the wider audience, as it is actually public information, just none of the creators who were actually at Tankfest decided to make any content on it. So, in summary, with weather, it is something Wargaming is considering for Reforged, and it very likely could come, and thus with weather comes the possibility of having night maps, and weather wouldn't be a purely visual thing. They might add a few abilities, such as like light tanks with smoke screen, heavy tanks with some overhead damaging artillery strike, something like that, just as a pure example. And due to the effort and time and money it would take to render weather, it wouldn't be purely aesthetics, as it would only change the game visually and not actually add anything to the gameplay and make it a bit different. So maybe it will come as a game mode, maybe it will be an addition to the regular mode, but weather won't be purely visuals. It may make some difference to the stats on your tank, such as an example, raining makes the ground wet, thus your tank's mobility would become slightly slower. Think of the wasteland map that we have, well, had introduced for Mad Games. The weather doesn't happen throughout the entire battle, it only happens after a while. It might be something like random events in World of Tanks PC, where the weather can come at any time, any point during the battle, but isn't always 100% guaranteed. It is just something to make the base game a little bit more different and interesting, and weather was one of the more requested things that has been talked about throughout the years. So basically, Wargaming has confirmed it for Reforged, but still not a 100% thing, and they do still have to work on it. Reforged, of course, is still a long way off, so this is just one of the questions that was asked about whether it was actually a possibility or not. And of course, Wargaming did say, well, this, which I have just told you. But on to the next feature. Wargaming did talk about, with a few Discord announcements and all that, some long-awaited feature that is coming to the game in the future in autumn. And this long-awaited feature they haven't really given much information on. So at Tankfest we asked, what is this long-awaited feature which you are going to be, well, teasing or releasing in the autumn or later in the year? And they said, we cannot tell you, however it has something to do with mastery. So, of course, there is by far no confirmation from Wargaming. However, by what they have said, with it being a long-awaited feature which many players have asked for, and with it being related to mastery, we can maybe guess that it might have to do with marks of excellence, or gun marks. If you don't want to know what that is, it is essentially a show of skill in the game, kind of like mastery badges, where you earn a certain amount of XP in battle and it gives you a mastery badge. Marks of excellence are kind of like that. Over 100 battles you play, and depending on your results in those 100 battles, you will be placed somewhere in the, well, player roster essentially. If you're in the top 5%, you get 3 marks. If you're in the top 65%, you get 1 mark. And then of course the second mark, I believe, is at 85 or 75%. So essentially it is something players have been asking for a long time, because it is just something for players to grind for something that they can show their skill in the game with. So of course this is not confirmation. Wargaming has only said the long-awaited feature is to do with mastery, but we can guess and we can hope. So hopefully Wargaming does bring marks of excellence to the game, but don't be too disappointed if it's not that, because it might be something else and we might be looking at this the wrong way. But hopefully it is a long-awaited feature related to mastery. Please be marks of excellence. But yeah, that is it. That is all that was talked about. Well, there were other things that were talked about at Tankfest QnA, however they weren't really quite as interesting as weather and this quote-unquote long-awaited feature. But that is it for this video. I hope you all found that information quite useful, and thanks for watching.